truly a celebration of life as the remains of late Mrs. Nneoma Georgiana Diwe, the mother of Chief Emeka Diwe, was laid to rest. The first son of the departed, Chief Emeka Diwe, a philanthropic entrepreneur who is also the President General of the Association of Southeast Town Union, ASETU, had some amazing things to say about his mother, who he said he will miss for as long as he lives.
Mama was my mother, and I would say continues to be my mother, because I don't believe she died. My mother couldn't have died. She merely changed form. She remains my mother in whatever form she is today. She remains my mother and will ever remain my mother in perpetuity. Just like I wouldn't say, nobody would say awful thing about his mother. That's why I'm short of words when I am asked to talk about my mother. But I want to tell you, my mother, everything I am today in terms of character, it was a direct DNA copy from my own mother. She was a very virtuous woman. My mother, honestly, I would have preferred to take from what people told you about my mother. But in order to answer you very directly, my mother was a very virtuous woman. My mother trained us in a peculiar way. My mother made it possible for us not to suffer. Imagine a woman who lost a husband about 50 years ago when we were toddlers. And she had 9 children to contend with. 9 children, none of whom could put a slice of table on the food, on the table. In a very good combination with one of my uncles, we were made what we are today by my mother. Honestly, nothing could have been so gracious. Talking about my mother spiritually, she's our director. It was through her prayers and supplications that we excelled in whatever we were doing, individually and collectively in this family. My mother held forth for us. The hedge of fire of God was sustained by my mother in this family. It's a long story, but I want to let you know that my mother did a lot for us, and that is why we decided decisively to in fact, her celebration, the celebration of her transition. I'm not talking about burial. The celebration of her transition is a project. In fact, I took it as the biggest project in my life, in the remaining part of my life. What could be bigger than this is my own burial, which I will not be there to appreciate. So, suffice it to say that, and I was pleased. You see, yesterday, the weather was very clement. Everything was positive. That shows the kind of woman my mother was. She was with us spiritually throughout. And you saw the way people showed their testimony. They testified by their presence, by their commitment in activities, in presentations, spiritual presentation. In support. Everybody was happy, and the word spoke for my mother. Yesterday, the word spoke for my mother. Thank you.
All right, sir. So we also notice a very high level of unity among the family. From the beginning of the burial till the end, there was no anywhere where there was any form of argument or anything. So please tell us what is the family secret?
Yes, it's all part of the legacy my mother and my father and other members of the family who are passed on dropped, and we've tried. We are keeping it on. We are keeping it up. That's how this family has ever been. We've been together in everything we do. Thank you.
All right, sir. We also there were a number of dignitaries, high-profile personalities that were in attendance yesterday, and a lot of them seem to be here for you. There was high level of participation in the activities, like you rightly mentioned. How do you feel about that, sir?
Well, I can only but feel good. I don't even notice that much about myself. I continue to run away from talking about myself, but you've said it all. People were here. It's all part of. You can see. It's not as if I am that rich or whatever, but I will try to maintain to live and maintain a modest life, especially in terms of character, which was one of the legacies our mother dropped for us. You understand? My mother taught me that character is everything. That character is everything in life, and we've tried to live by that axiom. Thank you.
All right, sir. You also initiated a foundation. You started a foundation in honor of your mother, which you have already kickstarted the funding yesterday. Now, please tell us more on that. What the foundation intends to do.
The foundation is, you see, my mother has always bothered about the less privileged, people who could not afford. But then we try to send it to the church, especially people who suffer for others without having a commensurate reward, commensurate benefit. The choir in my place, every day there is burial every day in the church, about 3 or 4 days in the week. There are some people who have not been noticed, but they do the greatest sacrifice. The church choir always come together. The church choir always come together to participate in the burial, from the church to the interment. They have always been there. Nobody seems to notice. These are people who have children, who have families, and they are not well to do as such. So what about their welfare? Somebody has to take care of their welfare, and that is what we have tried to initiate. These are peasants who are in the village. They don't have very handy handwork, but they suffer for the people. They sacrifice their time for the people every day, and they deserve to be encouraged. That is why we started, and in line with Mama's concept about relationship with the other person, we established that foundation in the church. Thank you.
Finally, sir, Mama, as we already know, left when she was already 92 years old, and we know that apart from God being merciful to her, there must be a secret, a character of her that made her enjoy the level of longevity that she enjoyed. What do you think was Mama's secret?
Simple life, just what I have just told you. You understand? And you see, the celebration is like a passionate thing. You understand? This celebration, if the Mama broke a jinx in the family, if you understand what I'm talking about, we've had some. A long chain of what people will call untimely death in this family. It has bothered us, but Mama at 92 broke that jinx and opened the gateway to longevity in this family. It is part of essentially part of the reason why we are celebrating her transition. And we hope and pray to God that from henceforth we will enjoy that longevity which Mama has actually established in this family. It's a very emotional thing to this family. It's very passionate. I mean, we are passionate about it because it has really, you can imagine the husband died about 50 years ago. You understand? 50 years ago, that was about 1972 or thereabout, or 71. That's when the husband died. And we were mere toddlers. I was like 10 years. So I didn't know what was happening. We were only concentrated in eating food. So from that in, everything about us was still undertaken by her mother. What if she had from heartbreak, decided to follow the husband? It's a heartbreaking thing, and died that time. It would have been a wonderful thing. I mean, it would have been a serious issue. You understand? So that's part of why we are celebrating. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sound City TV, one people, one voice.